Good evening, everybody. This is Robin with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight. And my guests tonight are paranormal investigators Amy Parks, Ray Causey, who is also in that Netflix series 28 Days Haunted. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good.
Thank you. Now, let's talk about, I got a chance to meet you guys at Scarefest. So how much fun did you guys have at Scarefest this past weekend?
I had a blast. It was so fun. I was actually kind of sad that it was ending. It's always bittersweet whenever, we get a chance to go and we meet everybody. And then once it comes to an end, it's always just sad.
Aw. What about you, Ray?
It was about the same. It was tons of fun. Every once in a while you get to mingle with a lot of cool people, and Scarefest is one of those times when you get to meet people you've never met, see people you don't see all the time. So it was pretty awesome. But yeah, coming home is definitely bittersweet because it's nice to get back to your normal life, but feeling normal is not always the most enjoyable thing these days. So,
all right, let's talk about 28 Days Haunted. How'd you guys become part of it? And then when you guys were chosen, you guys were blindfolded, not knowing where you were going.
Yeah, we both pretty much have the same story as to how we got into it, because we both know Dave Schrader, who's been on the Holzer Files and Ghosts of Devil's Perch. He knows us, and he knows Shane, the guy that we were there with, and he recommended each one of us for the show, and then we just so happened to be three of the people that got picked. So shout out to Dave Schrader for hooking us up.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, I also talked to Shane Pittman as well. He was part of the 28 Days Haunted too. And he told me a very incident that really scared him, which was dealing with cabinets in this one room. He just wanted to get out there real quick.
Yeah, that was a pretty intense moment. We heard a loud thud, and we went up the stairs, and then we walk up there, and every single cabinet door and every single actual door is blown open all at the same time. And there was no way we could explain it, in regular terms. So we knew something paranormal was going on for sure.
So what about you, Amy? What was some of the interesting paranormal experiences you had while you were locked up for 28 days? You guys didn't have your cell phones. You weren't near human contact. It was you guys just trapped in this place.
Trapped indeed. Some of the scary experiences for me was on the first night that we were there. We had done a walkthrough, and initially, if you've seen the show, there's a lot of things that we may talk about that you may not have seen.
Okay.
So, the first day we went in, and we were blindfolded going in, so we were doing a walkthrough, and we went into the Valentine room, and initially I was getting drawn to certain places, and that was one of the rooms. And whenever I was in there, I had mentioned that there was a female that was strangled in that room. But you have to understand, at the time, we had no inclination of anything that took place there. We knew nothing, and we didn't even know where we were. So for me to pick up on that, they were very adamant about me staying in that room. So the first night we were there, we were unpacking. We were done filming, and I was unpacking my bag. And also understand that there are cameras in every room. So when I'm in there, I was unpacking my bag, and I just heard this loud crack or like a thud. So it startled me so bad that I screamed. And Shane had heard me scream, and he ran in and he said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I have no idea what that was. So I kind of laughed at later, because I thought maybe that was the spirits giving me my initiation scare. So, and the second night was, I had something, what it felt like something poking me from under the mattress. So that was pretty creepy too, especially whenever you watch the show and you understand about the spirits that had passed away in that room.
Oh, I bet you guys were picking all kinds of evidence in there. I mean, I bet you guys were getting goosebumps. I mean, so
it's crazy because so much evidence that we collected, it just never made the final cut. It all ended up on the cutting room floor, and so like people see like a snippet. They see 3 hours of what all three teams did when really it was like 20,000 hours of investigating and living together that didn't get shown.
So, what was some of the evidence you guys collected that was like very creepy that wasn't shown on the Netflix series?
I know we got several EVPs, which I can't remember any of the words, but a lot of them were like help and help us, and we took a lot of pictures with a Polaroid that didn't get shown, and there was quite a few of those Polaroids that had like shadow figures in the corner, and some of them were standing right behind us at the time, and we did a lot of experiments that they didn't show, so we had a lot of profound evidence that didn't quite make it in the show like that.
Yeah, shadow people always scared me, especially growing up. I mean, when I was younger, I witnessed a couple shadow people myself. It just scared the living tar out of me. And what were you going to get ready to say, Amy?
Speaking of shadow people, in the show, you'll actually see a snippet of the one shadow figure that we saw in the basement. But prior to that, when we were in that little basement area, which, by the way, that was part of the absolute most creepy part of the house. There were spiders in there. There were cobwebs in there. It was creepy. But anyways, that same shadow figure, we were doing the Estes method, and I obviously had all my senses blocked. I had a thing over my eyes. I had the headphones on, so I had no idea what was going on. And here there was a shadow figure that Shane and Ray saw, and it had actually lifted up the manhole that was right above us.
Yeah.
And which obviously scared the bejesus out of Shane. So I don't really know. You know more about that, Ray, than I would, because obviously.
Yeah. So while she's in this state of deprivation with no eyes and no ears, this manhole starts to lift up and shake. Shane panics, and he immediately decides it's time to get out of Dodge. But he forgets that Amy can't hear us, so he says, "Let's go," and starts leaving. But he forgets that he's leaving Amy, so I have to grab him. I say, "Hey, man, we have to get her before we leave." And then suddenly he finally comes back to his senses and decides, "Oh, yeah, maybe we should take her with us."
All right, and then Amy's just standing there, doing what she needs to do, and you guys are just getting away, and she's like, huh.
Yeah, she had no idea any of this happened. Like, I mean, up until the show aired, which they showed a lot of it in the show, not the whole exchange, but they did show the manhole moving and Shane panicking. But yeah, she didn't know any of that had happened. We had to tell her because she couldn't hear it, she couldn't see it. So, when you can't hear and see, you don't really know what's going on. You're left to hope that whoever you're with is taking care of you.
Exactly. Now, since you guys were in the basement, so when you first went down there to see if you can get any evidence, paranormal, did you have that uneasy feeling, going, I don't know if I should go down there? I've like a pit in your stomach, which is telling you don't go down.
As soon as we got to the basement, we noticed there was like an extra door down there. And so we were like, okay, what's this go to? So it's a huge, like 85, 95 pound like door that goes into a coal chute, how they used to heat houses before we had central heating and air and all that. So you open that up and it's just like this tunnel that leads you back into the coal chute. And it was like, as soon as we opened it, we looked at Shane, and from Shane's experience on the Holzer files, we knew that we had to go in there because that's where he was going to get sent anyway. So it definitely, we all felt like something was going on in that one area.
So what did it feel like crawling through a tight space like that when it's like cold and dark?
Creepy. Very, very creepy. It wouldn't have been so bad, but being able to step down, it was pretty hard. But the fact that there were spiders all over the walls, it was a little rough for me.
Shoot, I bet. I don't like spiders.
Yeah, and you got three people in this small area, and like so it's hard to breathe, and everything feels like it's closing in on you, and then you got creepy stuff happening around you. So yeah, it definitely plays a part in your nerves and kind of keeping you in tune with what you're doing.
So
the interesting part, real quick, about that space down there was initially, like I was talking earlier, we were doing the walkthrough, and when I kept being drawn to the back of the house, back in the yard, and I kept feeling like there was something. I think I had mentioned something about a passageway, and that I kept feeling like there was some kind of passageway, and meanwhile we were standing right on it, which was pretty cool.
So, so what led you out to the back of the place? I mean, besides finding the door.
Well, they wanted to know where I was being drawn to, and I kept being drawn to the back part of the house because prior to even going, I had already started receiving visions of things that had took place there. And so, but when I initially got there, the energy that I was feeling was pulling me back there, and there was part of it that was on because it was a wraparound porch, so part of it was on one side, but that was actually right below the Valentine suite because we hadn't been up there yet. And then the other part was actually right over top of the basement coal chute part that we hadn't found yet.
Wow. So so you get vision, so you're more like a sensitive, right?
Yes.
So you're probably a big ghost magnet, aren't you?
I am. Yes, I am.
and then great, and then Shane and Ray are like, "Ooh, we like this. We'll use her as bait so we can get this great evidence."
Yeah, that's pretty much how it was, because we were like, all right, we've only got so much equipment with us, so we can only do so many experiments. So we were like, look, we're going to have to rely on Amy to get us a baseline so that we know where to go, so that we're not just spinning our wheels the whole time we're here. So we definitely were grateful for Amy being there.
Oh, I bet you guys were. So the basement and the Valentine room was the most creepiest of the whole house. Was there any other areas that you really got some great evidence? I mean, like, you try to debunk it, but you can't debunk it, and then it was just some good evidence.
Yeah, up in the attic, we were in this little room. I called it the turret room, but it was basically like a extra room in the attic that kind of came off the house. And we were in there doing some experiments, and we looked up, and suddenly there was one singular candle that was hanging down that was just rocking back and forth at a steady pace. And it stayed rocking back and forth for 30 minutes. Didn't slow down, didn't speed up. It just stayed the same exact pace the whole time we were in the room.
And remember when we were in there, I called it the carousel room. So when we were in there, it has windows that's going the whole way around, and it has a bench that we can all sit on. And something that I was picking up on was that I remember we were sitting there, because you have to understand, we were investigating 7 days a week. Like, this was every single day. So there were times when we wouldn't, I mean, we always heard something, there was something going on, but at the same time, for the things that really stick out, this is one of the things that stick out to me. When we were sitting in there, we had the spirit box going, but then we also were just sitting there. And I remember I was being told about we were going to hear something, and that we were going to, and I don't remember if it was a whistle or if it was, do you remember that? Like, it was some kind of noise that we could not determine what it was, but it was from outside. And mind you, we were on a second or third floor. So there wasn't like there was anything around us that could have been making that noise.
Wow, that had to been creepy. I would have been creeping out on that. But knowing me, I would have to go find out where it's at. I'm one of those ones that's real curious. I'm a little scared, but I got to see what this is, man. I got to see if this is legit or not.
Well, see, for us, we had no choice because, typically if you hear something go bump in the night, you can just run away if you don't want to deal with it. We had no choice but to stay the entire time because we couldn't leave. We had 28 days, so if you hear a bump in the night, you better go figure it out, because the next night it might not just be a bump in the night, it might be coming to get you. So we had no choice but to investigate every every noise and everything that happened. We had to go see what it was and make sure we were safe when we went to sleep.
I bet.
Very true.
So was it hard for you guys to sleep sometimes? Did they like keep you up saying, "Hey, we're here. We don't want you to sleep. We want you to share our story"?
Well, initially when we got there, we weren't really welcomed with open arms. We kept getting a lot of EVPs of, get out. Basically, we don't want you here. Screams, children crying, children laughing. There was a lot of stuff that kind of initially, I don't know if they were just trying to, like, I call it the initiation, or if they were trying to say, hey, this is our space, you're in our space. But the greatest part was the longer we were there, they realized what our intent was and that we weren't there to, do anything bad or try to do anything. But we became very connected to them. So it was pretty cool.
That's pretty good. At least you didn't have no harm done to you, like them coming after you. They finally understood you were there. So when you guys were there for 28 days, with no social media, no everything, did you guys kind of get like a little bit of a cabin fever a little bit?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and that they kind of portray that in the show. They just kind of draw it out a little more. But yeah, if you spend 28 days straight with someone with no way to decompress, there's going to be times when you butt heads. Me and Shane butted heads. Me and Amy butted heads, which they showed in the show. Shane and Amy butted heads. I mean, you can't get away from anybody. There's nowhere you can go that you're not either dealing with something paranormal or something human. And it's just everything gets on your nerves. You're barely getting any sleep. You're having to work. You're on the clock 24/7 because even when the cameras quote unquote turned off when we finished our investigation, they still were watching us sleep just in case something happened while we were sleeping. So I mean, we were constantly on camera 24/7. We're on camera when we get in the shower. We're on camera when we're getting dressed. I mean, we're constantly on camera. So that adds an extra layer of just stress and anxiety on top of the fact that you're paranormal investigating. You're living with people you've never lived with before. So all those things are just a recipe for things to just be stressful the entire time.
Oh, it would drive me.
I was going to say, on top of being in a haunted location that's consistently pouncing on you every second of every day.
Oh, I believe it. I mean, they would be driving me up the wall too. You have like these ghosts, and then you have these people you don't know who they are, and you're trying to like get along with everybody. That would drive me up the wall too. That'd give a lot of energy to some like evil spirits in that house, man. They were probably like sucking that energy out of you guys like crazy.
To be honest, it was rough for me for the first 2 weeks. It was strange because I literally woke up every day, felt like I was hungover, and I made sure I let everybody know that I'm like, man, but then at night I couldn't sleep. It was like I would catch this weird second wind, or I was hearing things. I would constantly feel things going past me. I would hear whispers. We would hear footsteps up on the fourth floor. There was always something constantly going.
Yeah, there were numerous nights when me and Shane could see it written all over Amy's face, where we just knew she had nothing left in the tank, and we'd tell her, hey, look, we'll do some investigating alone, go upstairs, get some sleep, we'll still be awake, so if something happens, we'll be here. But there was no way we were going to force her to sit there and stay up for another 8 hours and do this investigation when we could see it that she was struggling to stay awake. So we'd tell her, if you need to go take a break or if you need to go sleep, we have no problem with that. We got 28 days, so there was no point in forcing her to do things every day whenever she was tired.
So when you guys were in there, did you guys feel any like demonic presence?
I mean, there was a particular entity that was there that it wasn't, like, when I say it wasn't human, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a demonic sense or it's a dark sense. This means that it could have been conjured up through, it could have been something like witchcraft. It could have been something of, a seance. It could have been any type of number, but it was something that I was having a hard time putting my finger on of like what it's like where it originated from. So, but there was some meanies in there too. But at the same time, we kind of had a balance. We had a good, but then there was actually a dark entity that was there, but it kind of was in and out a lot.
Yeah, they didn't show a lot of the history of the lumber baron on the show, but it was originally built by a lumber baron, John Moet, and his family lived there until there was obviously the Great Depression, and they lost all their money and they had to lose the house, and then it traded hands a lot. It actually became an apartment complex. So they took the house, turned it into like 23 different apartments, which obviously you've never seen the entire inside, but they made a bedroom like 2 to 3 different like house units. And so then there was then that part of Denver got really like bad off, and there was a lot of drug dealers and a lot of like women of the night and stuff like that, and there was a lot of people that were killed there that had their blood was still like soaked into some of the original wood of the house, so you could actually look at the wall and see the blood soaked areas. And then luckily it was bought by some new owners, and then it finally fell into the hands of the owners that have it now, Elaine and Joel, and they've made it this beautiful bed and breakfast, and they allowed us to come investigate, and they appreciated what we did, and we appreciated them for letting us come there. So yeah, it has a very long history, but thankfully now it's in the hands of 2 people who appreciate the paranormal aspect and also respect the spirits, and don't just allow it to be given to anybody to free roam in there. They definitely have a very, very high regard for paranormal investigating, and they have a high regard for the spirits that are there.
So the guy you're mentioning who built that place, what you're saying, and made into all the apartments to, the logger baron, did you guys ever catch any evidence on him? Is he still lurking around that house?
The original owner is still there. He was actually a very wonderful man. At first, we thought maybe he was one of the negative spirits, but the longer we stayed there, we realized that he more or less stayed there as the overseer, as the protector. So anytime something negative would come towards Amy, she would sometimes feel another spirit there that was trying to help. And it turns out that was the original owner of the house that was just trying to protect. And he had done that, when he was alive too, with his daughters and his wife.
Well, that's good, Amy. You had yourself like a guardian angel, spirit wise.
He was a really. I had actually started picking up on him even previous to us even going there, because I knew that there was significance to him, and the way I would see him, that he was because I like to write things down, especially because A, I don't forget, and B, if there's a huge significance to this person, I need to make sure that while we're investigating, I have to see how they play the part and how they come into the story. So I had actually picked up on him previously. I knew he was he was a well-off man. He was very respected in society, and normally, like, my vision was I would see him in a top hat. So that's how I knew that he was a really good. He was a good spirit. He did a lot of work. I think he built like 200 homes or something like that. He did a lot of good for the community and for his family. So it was nice to see.
And now let's get into another subject besides you guys, investigating the paranormal. Who's the biggest horror fan between you two?
Ray.
Definitely got to be me.
Ray, what was that one movie you watched that really messed with your head, that really got you to fall in love with horror?
I think it would be a toss-up between the original Hellraiser and the original Candyman. When both of those movies came out, they kept me up for a long time, being worried about, especially Candyman, because all you got to do is go in there and say his name 5 times and he's coming for you. So.
What about you, Amy?
I was going to say, the one that got me, that I had nightmares about, believe it or not, was Cujo.
Wow, Cujo, the rapid Saint Bernard.
Yep. I don't know. I was always afraid of wild dogs, so it was kind of weird because just the viciousness that they had. This usually Saint Bernards are cute and fluffy, and no, that was not. So yeah, 3 nights in a row I had nightmares, and I swear, and I've never watched a movie again ever.
Yeah, it's crazy because as a kid, you go from watching Beethoven to watching Cujo, and you realize it's the exact same dog, and it's like, how did this happen? What happened to this dog? So.
Or if I have a friend that has 2 Saint Bernards, and they're the nicest dogs ever, but sometimes, man, I'll sit there and be like, are they just being nice because she's there, or or do they want to come after me? So funny story was, I stayed over one night at her house, and I was sleeping in the guest bedroom, and I woke up around 3:00 in the morning, and I see this big Saint Bernard staring right at me. It scared the living tar out of me. I felt like I was in a horror film, but I knew he was friendly. I knew he wasn't going to do anything, but wouldn't that freak you out if you saw a big Saint Bernard at the end of your bed in the middle of the night just staring at you while you're sleeping?
I'm going to tell you what, that's about what it's like having kids, because my toddler will come in the room at 3:00 in the morning with her hair all in her face, and she looks like a mini version of Samara from The Ring, and there's nothing that'll terrify you more than seeing that, too.
You're like this, you're like, no!
Yeah, I open my eyes and I'm like, oh, please let this be a dream.
Amy's loving this.
Oh God, that would be terrifying. Funny at the same time, but yeah.
All right. So, where can everybody find you guys on social media to see what you're doing next, or your any investigations?
I have a public Facebook page, and then I also have Instagram. Instagram is probably the best way because I update that a whole lot more than I get on my Facebook. So I'm on Instagram. It's the Causey Way, and my Facebook is just Ray Causey. But we also have an event coming up in January 19th and 20th. We will be in Fort Wayne, Indiana at the Bell Mansion. So anybody who wants to see us, along with the entire rest of the cast of 28 Days Haunted, all 3 teams, all 8 participants, we will all be there for our 28 Days Haunted reunion at the Bell Mansion in Fort Wayne in January of this coming up year.
And I have, I'm mostly on Facebook and Instagram, and under Facebook, I think I'm under Amy Lynn or Ames I am. And then Instagram is amy.ames22. So, yeah, and hopefully if anyone listening, you guys all come up to Indiana, or if you're in the local area, come and stop by and say hello to us.
Yeah, they better, because you guys, when I met you guys at Scarefest, you guys are the most nicest people, man.
Thanks.
Shoot,
yeah, I'm telling you, Scarefest was such an incredible experience. I mean, it's hard for me because I'm such a horror nerd that, you're sitting there and you see, Bill Moseley and Kane Hodder and all these horror icons walking around, and you're technically co-workers at the time because we're all there for the same reason. But the other part of me wants to just nerd out and go give everybody hugs and say hey to everybody that I've looked up to my whole life. So it was definitely hard to balance that work and personal life when it came to Scarefest.
I love it. But guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us.
And everybody, have a